You were talking about money, right?
Separate yourself widely from the pack moving forward. Is that something that you would be willing to have a discussion about?
Because they didn't get it.
They
were
probably
like,
didn't get it. Yeah.
To follow up with your clients, to generate more leads. You know what I mean?
Always check to make sure you're recording.
The record.
Yeah.
Clap and I need to start over and all that jazz.
Oh, Lord.
Yep.
We go 5, 4, 3.
What up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Key Factors Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Jones, and we are powered by ReviewMyMortgage.com, the largest index of mortgage programs nationally. And that being said, as you know, education is something that is high priority for me and the folks that I include in my circles. So I figured today we'd have someone that also has those same beliefs join us on this episode. So without further ado, I want to introduce my guest, Ashley Verastegui. Is that
Close.
right? How you doing, lady?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Pronounce that for me for the 100th time.
I know. It's okay. Verastegui.
Verasti.
Yes.
Verasti. And is that Italian?
Spain. My
That's from
husband's
Spain.
ancestors are from Spain.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you can thank him for that last
Well,
name. It's a mouthful.
I won't thank him for that. How you doing?
I'm doing good.
Awesome.
I'm doing good.
So as we jump into this, I do want to make sure that the folks listening, they may or may not know who you are. And for those of you listening that have no clue, Ashley's going to tell you who she is, what she's about, all that good stuff. Go ahead.
Yeah. All right. So I've been in real estate industry for 10 years.
Okay.
Kind of just fell into it. Really.
Did it hurt?
No, not at first.
Good.
Those came along with the lessons
Right.
down the road. It hurt a little, but we learned from those. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I have a degree in criminal justice that
Okay.
I didn't use, and I got on, started my real estate career in mortgage,
Okay.
and just kind of worked my way up. Loved helping other people. That's as an Enneagram too, man.
Yeah.
It's just in my nature,
I hear
and you
ya.
can't stop it.
No,
you just
no,
can't
no,
stop
no.
it. So I started off in processing,
Okay.
and started off training other processors in the company that I worked for at the time.
Mhm.
And just continued to build that rapport with them. We ended up moving to Houston for a little while
Right.
for my husband's job, and I switched over to a company over there, and I went from kind of working in a call center environment to really getting my hands dirty and out there working on a loan officer's team and being his team captain and running all of that for him. And I started teaching VA lunch and learns.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Teaching has always been something that has been at my core,
Yeah.
but I knew I couldn't teach kids. I don't have that much
No
patience.
yes.
No patience.
We didn't say doctor.
Right. So I love kids. That's great. But I will rather teach adults all day long, right? Because they have a choice in
Yes.
how far they're going to take
Because
that.
at times they still act like children.
Yes, this is true story.
So you, I guess, having the mortgage background a little bit,
Mhm.
I would imagine that gives you a good perspective of once you made the switch to becoming a realtor, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So I guess what would you think is a good tip for someone getting in as a realtor that doesn't have the mortgage background? And the reason why I say that is because you've got a lot of agents out there, and we're getting into some good stuff right away.
Yeah.
There's a lot of agents out there that literally have zero clue what we do on our side of the tracks in regards to how a loan works from start to finish, that it's a process, all that good stuff.
Of course. It would mainly be who you're partnering with, right?
Yeah.
As the new realtor coming into the industry with no experience whatsoever, you have builders and title companies
Mhm.
and lenders reaching out. Let's go to lunch. Let's go to happy hour. Your time is money.
Yeah.
Right? It's one or the other, and you want to make sure you're using that valuably. So connecting with those lenders, our business is all relationship,
That's
right?
true.
And so as long as you're building those relationships with the lenders that are going to pour into you, that goes vice versa.
Yeah.
And sitting down and getting a full understanding of what that process looks like and somebody that they can lean on and call. Because buyers, right, they choose their own lender at times.
Yeah.
At times they come to us already with a lender at hand, and we may have never worked with that person before. So getting to know their process. Every bank works different. Every company does things a little bit different. So having that open communication and pairing up with a lender that you trust and you know that's going to guide you in the right direction, and do your research.
Yeah.
And Google is everything. Just
Google.
sit down and do your research, man.
It's
Like,
so true.
and some of that information out there is false, right? So make sure it's a good resource.
Right.
You're not reading the incorrect information. And don't take input from somebody who hasn't bought a house in 30 years.
Oh my goodness, that is a great tip. Yes.
Like if they haven't bought a house in 30 years, they don't know what's going on today.
And I think I'm going to showcase that or frame it because there's a lot of folks out there that are giving people advice, real life advice, but yet have not actually gone through it themselves. Let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah.
Is that, in your opinion, because I'm not saying that if you're a renter out there or if you've never bought a home, you shouldn't be a realtor. That's not what I'm saying. But you do have realtors and lenders alike that will give advice in the sense that they are a homeowner, but they're not. And it may be the right advice. It may not be the right advice, but it's still given from the perception that they are a homeowner. Does that make sense? What are your thoughts on that?
I think that they do the best they can with what they have at that moment. But it goes back to we as realtors or lenders, why aren't you investing in the product that you're selling?
I have to agree with that 100%.
And so you're out here talking to people and educating people about buying and what's the benefit of it, but you yourself haven't done that. And I think it's important to lead by example. And it goes by those relationships that you have and getting to know the people that you work with. Who you work with matters in our industry.
Yeah.
And if you're working with the wrong people, man, you can go down with that ship real fast.
I agree. And I think this is like the only time that you can actually get high on your own supply.
Right? Yeah.
And it's totally acceptable.
Yeah.
Why? Because real estate for me, honestly, has led me to where I am now, and not just the mortgage side of things, but I'm talking investment side, and showing people how to build their wealth. You can make all the money in the world, but if you're not putting it in the right places to get at least a return or hold, you're just spinning your wheels, in my opinion.
Right. So as a realtor, why are you not investing in the product that you're selling?
Absolutely.
Why are you not doing that? We just sold our investment property in Houston this summer and was like, hey, now's the time.
Rain, I'm sure.
It was great, and it's like, okay, and my husband totally, hey, whatever you want to do, babe. I support whatever
You're the
decision.
expert.
Yeah. And so we did. And he's like, okay, really? I'm like, yeah. And it's going to appraise and we're going to be fine. And guess what? Now we're looking for land around here to make that next investment, to
That's
do
awesome.
the next thing. We got 2 kids coming up, and how are we able to build wealth for them?
Right.
I know it's going to sound a little cliche, but they're not making any more land.
No, they're not. That's not cliche. That's a fact, guys.
So it's like, okay, well, what are we going to do with the opportunities that we've had handed to us? And we're going to make the best of it.
That's so true. It is so true. And I think powerful for people to understand that basic concept that you said was cliche, but in my opinion, it's not mentioned enough. You can't build more land. What does that mean? That means that if you purchase a home with land, that's it. Matter of fact, I use the example like when someone's shopping for homeowners insurance and they're insuring their home. Let's say the home is worth $400,000, land is maybe worth 50, 100, who cares? They'll then get an insurance policy for $600,000, $100,000 over what it's actually worth to rebuild. And you ask the insurance company, why did you do that? Well, we're insuring the land and this and that. And it's like, well, if the home burns down to the ground, the land still remains.
Right.
So what are we doing here?
Yeah. The land's not going anywhere.
That's so true.
Yeah.
It's getting your slice of the American pie. Hopefully it's still the American dream. But we'll talk about that as we move forward.
Yeah.
So now taking through your journey, you transition from mortgage business, working kind of the ops side with a team, growing, seeing how things were fast paced and being on the other side of the tracks. And then once you flipped to realtor, what was that like?
It was an easy transition for me. Even going in and taking my loan officer license, people and job offers that I had lined up were just like, oh, well, we've got offers out and they haven't passed it on the first exam. And I'm like, this is fine. This is what I've been doing, you know? And I passed it on the first try and they're like, oh my God. I'm like, guys, this isn't rocket science. Like
Genius.
You study and you go do it, It's like, and so then when I started doing that and I was out teaching at other offices, real estate offices in Houston, one of the managers came to me and was like, Ash, I want you here in my office teaching, go get your license.
Wow.
okay.
Wow.
I went and got my real estate license, and I was there teaching her agents and helping her host classes about the mortgage process and what that looks like, and integrating that into a real estate process for them to just be knowledgeable enough to be dangerous, right?
Sure.
There's so much misinformation out there that we want to make sure agents are providing their clients with the correct information, setting the right expectations, because I'm sure you've seen it too. Communication is so key in our industry.
It really is.
But so many people fail at it. And it's like, y'all just pick up the phone. Pick up the phone.
That's so true. I mean, as simple as that is, communication, this generation seems to think that communication is just social media, things of that nature. But I think we're kind of losing the human nature of picking up the phone and calling or being in person. Not too much being in person, but more so the communication. Setting expectations early on in the process. If stuff hits the fan, let people know. Because at the end of the day, it's going to affect everybody.
Yep.
And no, it may not have been your fault, but it is your job and responsibility to at least let everybody know and find solutions for that issue with a timely manner involved, because people have things to move. You've got all these things that have to fit just right in the end.
Yes.
You know?
No, I totally agree. And one of the things that I learned early on in my real estate career was bad news doesn't get better with time.
No, it doesn't. That's
you may
great.
not have a solution right away, but pick up the phone and say, hey, this is what I'm working on. This is who I'm in contact with. And this is what we're doing to make this happen for you. Bear with me. Give me an hour and I'll call you back.
Yeah.
And do what you say you're going to do.
Oh,
call
my
them back
gosh.
in an hour, man.
I feel like I'm talking to myself.
I know.
I mean, these are the things that I 100% rest my hat on. It's do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. If you do just that, in my opinion, is the bare minimum of showing great character. It's a trait that many don't have. Unfortunately, kind of like common sense isn't so common. It's just kind of equally as lost. But if you can simply do that, hey, I will call you back. Well, when? Give me 24 hours. No big deal. As long as you set that expectation, you're good. Now, if you can't call them back within 24 hours, why did you set that expectation?
Right. Or even call them back in 24 hours and tell them how far you've made it.
Absolutely.
Hey, I told you I was going to call you within 24 hours. I'm not the only person working on this situation. We've got title in on this or whoever's involved, but we're doing our due diligence. Give me another 24 hours.
That's so true.
You're just doing what you said you're going to do. And that's how you're going to build trust, not only with your clients, but just your sphere, your people around you.
Absolutely.
And that's something that we're trying to ingrain in our kids. You know, we got 2 boys. I'm trying to raise men.
Yeah.
We got a lot of weak kids out there.
That's
That's
man.
not,
You
know,
nailed it.
so I'm like, no, I'm trying to raise men in a world where there aren't a lot of examples.
You're correct.
You know, and my husband and I we're diligent in making sure that we're surrounding ourselves with people that influences that we want our sons to see.
Right.
You know, and grow and that kind of thing. And those same characters go along with that,
Right.
you know? And one of the conversations I had last night coming home from football practice, hey man, you do the right thing even when no one's looking. You know, and he's like, okay, mom. And I gave him an example of what that looked like. And he's like, okay, you know, and because he was telling me a story about another kid on the football team, you know, and I said, hey, you always do the right thing, no matter what, no matter who's there, you do the right thing and you never go wrong, man.
It's like these basic principles are not being taught anymore.
No,
And
like
if they
this with
are,
their cell phone
and
or
if
an iPad.
that's very true. And if they are being taught, like I was, their nose in a cell phone. And I think that's kind of why the TikTok reels and things of that nature are kind of rising for lead generation and things of that nature, because people have an attention span of like 3 to 10 seconds max.
Yeah. Yeah. And
They
it's an
can't have
addiction.
conversations
There's an
like
addiction
this.
to that TikTok. It's
Right.
crazy. I'm not on it. I know it could help grow my business in some ways, and some realtors use that platform. Me, myself, I'm not there yet.
Right.
You know, Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn, those are my 3.
I'll be honest, same here.
yeah.
I don't mess with the TikTok thing. Now,
Yeah.
I have businesses that we utilize it. I have processes for that when it happens, and it is happening. But I don't create the content anymore. I'm not the one on the soapbox.
Yeah.
This is my stage. This is really the only stage I want to be on these days, other than behind the scenes coaching and mentoring my other loan officers.
Right.
It's a good feeling, but it is weird seeing new stuff come up, like the TikTok and the reels and things of that nature. And you go, well, how the heck does it work? And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden you've got a loan officer that blows up and has tons of leads coming in, and you go, okay, I don't know how you did it, but here's what you need to do now.
Right. Here's what you need to do with it. And
That's
that's the
exactly
thing. They
right.
know how to generate it, but
Yeah.
they don't know what to do with it when they get it in their lap. And some people lose business because of it. They're
You're right.
losing out on those leads because they don't have a process or a system in place
Yeah.
to help them stay on top of it. And it goes the same for realtors.
That's so true.
And so part of why I became an instructor was to help the next generation of agents coming up below me.
Yeah.
You know, I've got experience. I've got that knowledge. Why not share it?
I agree.
You
And I
know?
think you do a great job of taking a outward zoom, looking at a bird's eye view to be able to see opportunity where a system can be put in place to either give that person back time. And that's really what we're all trying to do, is give ourselves back
Mhm.
time to spend with our families, to generate more income, to whatever the case.
Yeah.
But before we get into you being an instructor, this kind of conversation comes up quite often, and it has to do with the book called Procrastinating on Purpose. You ever read that before?
I haven't read it,
Okay.
but
I'm gonna give it to you.
I do procrastinate on purpose,
Well,
probably. Like,
and the
it sounds-
concept behind it is we don't really understand why we do what we do when it comes to things that we have to do, or why do we put them off. And I have to believe that we feel like we have to do it all.
Mhm.
And this is me giving you permission out there listening that you don't. You need to find out the things that only you can do within your process, within your business. And this can be applied to any industry, but figure out the things that only you can do. List them out. List the things out that it takes your process from A to Z. List them out and determine what you can actually delegate,
Mhm.
what you can automate, and what you can eliminate from your process.
Mhm.
And then everything left, guess you got to do.
Yeah.
And you'll find that you'll be given back time that you've been yearning for until the next time
Mhm.
that you come across this situation where you're feeling overwhelmed, and it's like, okay, why do I have so much on my plate? Because you put it there.
Yeah.
You're taking that in
Yeah.
versus kind of stepping back, bird's eye view. What the heck's going on? Okay, there's a opportunity where I can implore or deploy a system
Mhm.
that gives me back the time that I desire. Right?
No, that's totally true. And I think hearing you say you put that on your plate is totally something my husband has told me, because I used to be that I was wrapped up in busyness.
Yeah.
You know, and I was stressed out and overwhelmed. And I just took a step back and I said, this is not me. This is not the
Mhm.
life that I want to live. And so I stepped down from a more demanding role. I loved it. I loved what I
Sure.
did. But I said, no, I'm taking ownership of my time back, of my life, what I want to do. And I started eliminating.
Yeah.
Started eliminating people that were in my life that were
Strong.
not bringing value.
Absolutely.
I started eliminating things that I would say yes to. You know, I mentioned that I'm an Enneagram 2.
Yeah.
That's a helper. Sometimes I say yes to things that I should not be saying yes to.
True.
You know, and then finally I said, does it impact my time with my family? Does it impact my income? Okay, well, it interferes with those two things. Guess what? I can't do that for you.
Yeah.
Here's when I can do that for you if that still works, but I can't do that for you right now.
And I think that is a great indicator that you have, for the moment, things under control. And I
Mhm.
say for the moment because there's going to become another hurdle, another level of
Another
adversity.
season, yeah.
There's seasons, there's levels, there's things that we go through that you go, man, here I am again. I've got all these things back on my plate. But then
Yeah.
again, that's called growth.
Right.
You go through your same process of eliminating and delegating and all that good stuff. But there was one thing that you said that I do want to repeat to make sure that the listeners, the viewers out there get this concept. And that is, if you're out there looking for more time to do what you do best, or looking for more time to get back with your family, looking for more time, period,
Mm-hmm.
you have permission to say no.
Yes.
And what I mean by that is, most top producers or anybody that wants to appease and make things happen, they tend to pull a lot onto their plate,
Mhm.
and it's always yes.
Mhm.
And they call those people yes men or yes women. You get what I'm
Yeah.
saying? I had a great conversation with my coach about a year ago, and she told me, you've got too much on your plate, dude. And I said, no, I don't have too much on my plate. I put it there
Mhm.
And she said, okay, well then what things on your plate can you eliminate? And at that time, she asked me how I go about coaching the loan officers and helping them with certain situations. And I said, I've got an open door policy. I mean, I'm in here grinding, doing what I do behind the scenes. And that can be anything from speaking to a borrower on a Zoom call, helping a loan officer solve the world's problems,
Yeah.
or setting up meetings, things of that nature, or just being a nerd and working on a website behind the scenes for a realtor. But the open door policy kind of puts a kink in that to where I'm always available.
Yeah.
And it interrupts the things that I was intending to do that day.
Mhm.
So after explaining that to her, she said, well, you have permission to say no. And it was like, but what will happen if I say no?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that I think is what we fear is rejection from the other side. If somebody says no, okay, are they then going to look at you lower? Are they going to, I don't know. But the idea behind it is they respect you enough to come to you, so they should respect you enough to honor a
Your
set
boundary.
schedule, your
Yeah.
boundaries, absolutely. And if you still remain to keep an outlet of, hey, here's my calendar,
Mhm.
it's all up to date, jump in there and throw 30 minutes on the calendar anytime you want, but do it in advance.
Right.
And it doesn't need to be long in advance, but hey, let's time block this thing.
Right.
And since then, it's been a whole lot better of a coaching, mentoring environment to where it's not getting in the way of what I'm doing, and we're able to coexist and still learn and
Yeah.
grow at the
Well,
same
you're
time.
not feeling rushed.
Yeah.
Like, I got to get back to what I was doing, even though I really want to help you and do what
Yes.
you're doing. But I think, too, just to tag on to that is you can say no and you don't need to provide an explanation to anybody.
That is great. That's actually something she said.
You know,
don't.
especially for new agents coming in, when you're setting up your time block
Mhm.
for figuring out what are you doing during these periods and figure out what your perfect week looks like.
Mhm.
And guess what goes on my time block every week? My family time and my self-care.
Me. Yeah, me.
This is coming first, and
Mhm.
it's not selfish. If you lose yourself in all of these things, you're going to burn out. You're not going to be productive for anybody else. You're not going to be productive for your family, and you're not able to take care of everybody that you love.
I've been there. Totally get it.
You've got to set that time block, set that schedule. And if somebody calls and wants to go see a house on Saturday morning, and that's when your kid plays football, hey, man, I'm sorry, I got another appointment during that time. How's Sunday at 4 o'clock? Okay, cool. We'll meet at Sunday at 4 o'clock. Or if not, guess what? There's another agent that you could pay to go open that door.
You're exactly
And
right.
you're okay if it's a hot market like in the previous months, right? Sometimes I couldn't get away. You know what? There was one point where we were in Chicago and I had an agent on backup here and I was like, hey, I've got this person, can you go show this house? Zelle works great, So you don't have to provide an explanation as to I have an appointment. They don't
Yeah.
need to know that your kid's football game.
So-
It's just one of those things. I don't need to give you an explanation about why I'm not available at that time.
I'm going to read something that happened this last week. If I can find it real quick. There is her and Brooks. And it basically went along. Oh, is this it? All right. So I had a customer this past weekend that was putting in an offer for $2.3 million.
Mhm.
Okay. And the agent that I'm working with on it typically does not rush things.
Mm-hmm.
She's very meticulous on, hey, get your documents to them, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
And she tells them the right way with enough value that they don't leave or say, well, we need it faster or anything like that.
Right. There's that sense of urgency that
Correct.
she puts in that expectation.
So in this case scenario, these folks had been looking for quite some time and finally found another house that they liked, and they were super engaged.
Mm-hmm.
She was like, here's the situation. We need to jump on it right away. And I don't normally do this. I said, totally get it. Pulled the application, did that on Friday, and then took off to the beach to do some fishing. And I requested the taxes and all that good stuff, told them, get them to me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, on Saturday, while we're out on the water, boom, here comes the tax return.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't get to my phone for 5 hours later. And it's not like me to do that.
Right.
But I promised the family that I was going to take the phone away, and this is all their time.
Got to disconnect. Yeah.
Absolutely. So it was, hey, Mark, did you receive the tax returns? No response. I know it's Saturday, but however, we're getting ready to submit a couple of offers. No response. And I basically replied back, this is 5.5 hours later. Sorry, literally just seeing this, was out on the water. I can review, jump on a call with you first thing in the morning before we hit the road, so that you can submit your offers. And their response on a $2.3 million customer, because most people would be scared to do that, make up some kind of lie or something like that. Oh, we're at an accident or some crap that I've heard before.
Right.
They basically said, send us catch pics as proof. Just kidding. Enjoy your time with your family. This can wait.
Yeah.
We'll talk tomorrow. No big deal. They submitted the offer the next day. But the point of me illustrating that is to show people that others are normal too.
Yeah.
They understand.
They're
And I
us.
think that if they don't understand, is that somebody that you really want to work with?
Yep.
In the end,
Yeah.
like values, how much do you value that kind of stuff? Respect, time, expectations, things of
Right.
that nature.
Right. And when you allow others to intrude on that,
Mm-hmm.
it wears you down. I mean, and it got to, there was a point in time this summer, I was showing a client that was referred over to me. And the first showing we had, she was 15 minutes late. All right, cool. We all have kids. Things happen, traffic, what have you. The next showing I scheduled for her, 30 minutes went by and I called her and I asked where she was. And her response to me was, well, we're at a church event. We'll be there in about 20 minutes. And I said, I'm sorry, I've already waited here with you for 30 minutes. You will need to find another agent to work with you.
Yeah.
And she was like, well, wait, what? We really need a house. And I said, but you don't value my time. I'm missing out on time with my kids to be here to show you houses. And I don't have that time to spend. So,
That's strong.
you know, and some people coming in as newer agents are scared to set those boundaries. Guys, it's okay. There's an abundance of business out there.
Mhm.
It's okay to set those healthy boundaries for
Yeah.
you. And it's okay that you do not say yes to everyone and everything.
Absolutely.
And I think some of that they'll navigate as they go, right? They're getting their feet wet. It's
yes
on the
and no.
job.
I think that most don't, though. I mean, the reason why we're talking about it so much is because we know most don't.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
That's
saying?
a true point. Yeah, that's a true point. I think you start to realize it, you know, you hope.
Yeah.
But you also hope that it's just kind of like the same thing with agents. You know, you give them all the tools and you tell them what to do, but you can only lead the horse to water.
Can't hold their head down.
Yeah, you've got to take action with
Yeah,
anything.
that's
You've got
true.
to take action. And if you're not taking action, then a year from now, you're going to be in the same boat.
That's so true. That's so true. And then we can start labeling you insane.
Yeah, 'cause you're not getting a different response.
That's right. That's right.
That's true.
So you're now transition into an instructor, and eventually I would love to do the same thing. I'm just not at that point in time in
Yeah.
the career with everything that we're building. I still am required in a lot of places. But I used to teach at a local school here,
Mhm.
real estate school. My uncle was an instructor.
Okay.
So he'd have me come in his first day of the class and let me take it away for about 30 minutes to an hour so that he can snooze in the back. Uncle Ernie, you heard this. I got you. I got you. So I did that from like 2012 all the way until, 2018. And then I started handing it off to my loan officers to take the reins on that. But
Yeah.
I always found that so fun to be able to educate people that actually want the information from you.
Right.
Like, hey, you signed up for this.
Right. Well, and I will say,
Required.
I will say that some in the class, right? You're paying for it.
Right.
You still have to put in the effort.
Amen.
You know, you still have to put in the effort to study and do all those things to pass. And I mean, I enjoy it. It's not my full time. I don't anticipate making it my full time. I
Right.
still do real estate. And that's what I love about it is that I'm still independent contractor and
Yeah.
I can teach as less or as much as I want. And give back. And it still allows me to have that time
Mhm.
once again, with my kids or with my husband or whatever we have going on a personal level, because that level of success is different for everybody.
Right.
You know, it's not about me driving up in a Lamborghini. That's not something I desire to have.
Right.
What I desire to have is land and wealth and things that I can pass along to my kids for generations
Absolutely.
that, you know, my parents aren't able to,
Right.
you know, and who's going to take care of them?
That's so true.
Guess what?
That's so true.
You know, we're in that, I think as millennials, we're in that gap of we're taking care of our parents and raising kids at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, I can say that I got lucky, and I don't know if it's lucky, but my parents are still kind of young. They had
Mhm.
me very young.
Yeah.
So they think that they're millennials kind of.
I love it.
But you're right. I mean, the idea of where our drive comes from. And I
Yeah.
think that's kind of where it stems. And what is your motive? What is your end goal? Start with the end in sight. And that is taking care of our family, building something that can pay residual. And that doesn't necessarily mean monetarily, but it can be
Right.
experiences that we take together, trips traveled, things of that nature.
Yep.
And I think folks don't really, I can't be general like that, but I think if you are going to get into some type of sales oriented job,
Mhm.
you've got to have a goal, because if not, you're going to just burn yourself out.
Yeah. Because you're going to take whatever's coming your way.
Yeah.
Because you don't have, what I see is that agents don't have a savings set up to
Right.
take care of their bills. You see a lot of single parents get into it thinking that it's quick money. Guys, this is a business. You have
Yeah.
to put in the effort. You have to put in the time to make it work. You are self-employed. You are your
Yes.
business. And I think some of the newer agents that are younger coming in think that this is quick money industry, and not so much. Like, it's
Yeah.
going to take an effort. And I think having that person to get in front of them to say that I'm taking that opportunity. You know, growing up was not the easiest on me, but in high school, I always had one person that was helping me carry along. I didn't know how to apply for college applications or
You and me
scholarships.
both. Yep.
You know,
My
but there
parents
was
were like,
somebody
here's the tax
there.
returns, fill out the form. I'm
Yeah,
like,
good
okay.
luck. I hope you get something out
Okay.
of it. Yeah. And so it's like, I always had that one person that stepped in. And so now I feel like, you know what? Now's my chance to be that one person to help somebody else get ahead.
Mhm.
And if I can do that by teaching real estate and sharing my knowledge and my wealth, then I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And guess what? I'm making an income at the same time. So
Boom.
yeah, it's like, all right, I'm good with it. And I
Yeah.
still have my time and I
That's-
still have my freedom.
And that's nice, because of the industry or the path that you took. It's opening doors that allow you to do what you love to do, but at the same time, still keep everything that you love intact.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And you mentioned something that I want to go back on, which is the idea of realtors being self-employed. I don't think that I emphasize that enough in some of these episodes. We talked about it with Martin Tirado on a couple episodes back.
Mhm.
But the idea of a realtor being self-employed, I don't think they take that seriously. They think that they're working a job when it is really your own business
Yeah.
for you to create into whatever it is that you want.
Whatever that looks like to you.
And the biggest piece is make sure to have some savings, because taxes are going to be due.
Mm-hmm.
The number one issue that I see with new to the business realtors, in addition to seasoned veterans, is the idea that you're going to have to pay 30 some odd % of whatever you made that year.
Yeah.
Unless you write it all off, which you can totally do that, but just know that you're not going to qualify for
For a
anything.
house.
So there goes your whole investing in what you actually do for a living.
Yes.
Right?
It trickles down.
It does.
Yes. But who is out there telling them these things?
We are today.
Yeah. But that's
Save
great,
for
right?
taxes.
Save for taxes. I mean, and put aside for that down payment on the next investment property. Build that plan.
Yeah.
You know, and my husband and I, whenever I decided to go back into sales, he's 100% commission as well.
Okay. What does he do?
Some people look at that. He is in appliance sales. He works for Factory Builder Services.
Okay.
So appliances to custom home builders.
I love it.
You know, and so we're like, all right, let's do it. And I'm like, okay, we're both commissioned. Like, we know that,
Yeah.
right? You know, and he's like, yeah. And I'm like, we're all in. And,
Yes.
and, you know, a few weeks back, we were just kind of reflecting on when we made that change. And I was like, holy cow, man. Like, we just took a risk and we did it. And
Right.
we're so much better off for it, you know? So don't be scared. I think that some people come from corporate
Mhm.
areas and they come into real estate and then they're scared to make that jump, or the income's not coming in like they thought because there's somewhere, some loophole that's in their process or their system where they're not staying in contact with people and they're losing business. And so they're like, okay, well, I'm going to go back to what's secure. They're going to go back to that familiar soul that says, okay, you know what? I can do this. Well, guess what? You can do this and be successful,
It's true.
but you have to put in the work. It's not going to happen overnight.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big misconception that I'm seeing with younger agents coming in through some of these classes and conversations that I have with them, you know, at breaks or after class or what have you. You know, the average real estate agent, they're like 56 years old.
Mm-hmm. Still.
That's a big gap.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that's a big gap for me. And so I'm seeing these younger kids that are willing to take the step and get their license. And it's like, okay, but now you have to do what we're telling you to do
Right.
to get the experience to build the business. So, again, you can only lead the horse to water.
That's so true.
It's heartbreaking because we see the potential in them. And then it's like, man, you just got to show up.
So there's something that I want to ask you about that. Before I do, I don't want to forget the idea that you just mentioned, which is you and your husband both took the leap of faith and made it work. And I believe it's because, number one, you had support, and
Yeah.
number two, you both went all in. You didn't half-ass it. Like I
Yeah.
say, you whole-assed it.
Yeah.
And the idea behind that is don't do one foot into this industry and still be doing your DoorDash and still be doing your whatever it is on the side.
Right.
Go 100% into that, or you're not going to get 100% of what you can potentially get out of that.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And my husband is one that will tell you that his wife does not half-ass anything.
Yeah.
And that's just the way I was bred. You
Team
know,
whole
you
ass.
just do it.
Hashtag it. That's awesome.
And that's what we teach our kids.
Yeah.
You know, when Levi takes the trash out, man, and he drags it and now there's stuff. Hey, man, you half-assed it. Pick
Yes.
up the trash bag and put it in the trash can and go back and clean up your mess.
That's right.
Well, Mom, no,
Mm-mm.
don't half-ass it. You know you half-ass it. Just do what you got to do, man.
That's right.
And so teaching them, I think, at a young age too, to understand that. And I push my husband at points. He's really good. I think we balance each other out as far as like he's really good is like, hey, I'm taking some downtime. Me, if there's something to do, I'm going to do it. And so
Yeah.
I've gotten a lot better at balancing that because he, and almost to a point, forces me to, right? Like I'm
Yeah.
like, man, they're over there relaxing, playing. Like I'm going to go do that. Whatever this is can just wait.
Right.
And like you're saying, delegate. Man, I hired a house cleaner. Like
Smart.
we're 100% commission, but I'm like, you know what? I don't want to clean baseboards. My time is way more valuable doing something else. And I went to him and said, look, this is how long it takes me to do these things around the house.
Mhm.
This is how much it's going to cost for me to pay somebody else. I'm putting it in the budget. And he's like, okay.
I love it.
You know,
So you mentioned just in that brief sentence, you mentioned a couple of things that show your character and you guys' ability to be where you are and do what you're doing, which is you understand the value of your time.
Mhm.
You gauge the level as to the monetary amount
Mhm.
and know that if I do this, hire this, fill this void, or replace this void for my time, I'm not going to take that time that I'm getting back to go and hang out at the bar or go to another.
Right.
It's intended to make more, to continue to have that so
Yeah.
that eventually you can get more time for something else.
Right.
The whole idea about that. And you said all of that in one sentence. It was like, dissect this up, please. I like it.
Yeah.
So and before I forget, the actual question that I wanted to ask you when you were mentioning the students and things of that nature is, what do you think about this next generation coming into real estate and when they're coming into it? I mean, we are, and let me frame this, they're coming into the industry it's jacked up right now.
Yeah.
It's all over the place. We got rates going through the roof. We've got the Fed that's scaring the piss out of everybody. We've got home values that in Texas, they're not going backwards, but in some other places they are, and they're using that to kind of mask over the United States that this is a crash and it's happening everywhere.
Yeah.
Which if you're listening to this and you're buying in Texas, do not worry. Do not buy into the propaganda. Our values are holding firm. People are just scared of rates right now. They're scared of if you buy right now and they happen to go down in a month, did you just mess up? Yes, but is it worth the risk? I also think yes, it is. At the end of the day.
I literally had this conversation with a buyer that I was showing this past weekend. And it was like, he's like, well, my rate's going up because we haven't, granted, I've shown the guy 3 houses that meet everything he's looking for.
Yeah.
And he's a first time home buyer, right?
Gotcha.
So it goes back to walking them through it, holding their hand. And he's just like, well, my rate's going up. That's okay. Now is still the time to buy.
Right.
You can refinance down the road.
Right.
Your rate is not permanent for the 30 years.
Right.
You have options. And I think that goes back to making sure we're setting those expectations up front. And sometimes we have to revisit the expectations we've set along
Right.
the way and saying, remember when we met and we talked about this? This is what was going on. Okay. And let's bring it back full circle for them. So the fact that there's this misconception of, the rates, it's just this scare tactic. And it's
Right.
like, no, now is still the time to buy.
And a lot of times, all we need to do is look at history. I mean, hey, let's pull up an image because most people are more visual. Like, here, read this article.
Yeah.
Look at this picture. Okay. The idea behind it is let's take a bird's eye view like you tend to do with just about everything. And I love it. And you do it pretty quickly
Oh,
too.
thanks.
And the idea is if in 1972 your home was worth 50,000 and we look at fast forwarding to today and it's worth 400,000, who wins? And on that scale, and mind you, real estate is always local, but I'm talking about Texas in general.
Yeah.
It looks like a, what is that called? Perpendicular? No, that's perpendicular. What is that? Horizontal? I don't know.
Listen, I see what you're doing.
You
I
get
see
it.
what you're doing.
For those of you that are just listening, I'm like doing this thing with my hand, and I'm not
He's trying to show
rolling
me
with the
a
homies,
graph.
okay? Sorry. But yeah, I mean, what, I lost where I was.
Yeah,
but
no, to go back to your question about the newer agents that are
Yes,
coming
thank you.
in and those generational agents that are coming in, they all want that quick fix, right?
Yeah.
That's what they've been set up to do. I'm a millennial. I'm on the older end of being a
You and me
millennial,
both. Yep.
but I'm there, so I get it. So I feel like we're in this, our age group, we're in this group of like, hey, we know what hard work is to get there.
Yeah.
And then we also know what it's like to get some things instantaneous by our phones,
Cell
right?
phones,
And
yeah.
get all of that knowledge and all of that base. And so trying to implement hard work into a generation that doesn't know what it is definitely a heavy feat. And
Right.
so that's part of why I took that role in as an instructor to say, look, this is the grind. This is what it's going to take. No one's going to hand it to you.
No.
And so, I think statistics from NAR in the past have been like new agents are going to be out of the business in 18 months, right? And that's because they just give up.
Well,
And they just don't put in the work to make it
have
happen.
That brother, uncle, cousin, whoever that they have that was lined up to buy or sell a house, and that's typically the reason why they jump in so quickly. Go, I've already got a deal ready to go lined up.
Oh yeah.
And then
this
after
guy's
that,
an investor. Let's do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then they go, well, how do I go get new business? Because my sphere of influence, everybody and their mother's a realtor and a lender now.
Right. Yeah. So who am I going to get business from? Well, I've already closed my in-laws. I've already closed my dad. I've already closed my mom, my cousin, sister's brother's mother.
Right.
Right. Okay. Eventually that runs out. So what are you doing to generate new leads?
Yeah. And the idea behind that, and I say it quite often, some people look at it as a negative thing, but I think it's a reality thing, which is if we only did business with our friends, we'd all be broke.
Yeah, I agree.
This
is why I'm getting a new sphere too.
and that doesn't mean that we can't become friends with who we do business with, but if
Right.
you're solely relying on your current sphere of influence of business as a pool, you're gonna
It's
run
gonna
out
run
dry
out.
real
Yeah.
quick.
Yeah. I mean, in San Antonio market area, the average time that a person owns a house is 3 to 5 years.
Right.
Okay, so if you just sold them a house, guess what? You're not going to list it for 3 to 5 years. So
True.
how are you going to go get
That's
another
right.
listing?
Yeah.
And most agents start out as that buyer's agent, and that's hard work.
Absolutely.
As a buyer's agent, it's hard work. And then eventually, about year 3, you start to see that shift where, the end goal is to get to 70% listings and 30% buyers.
Right.
That's where you want to get to. And around year 3, year 4, that's where you start to see that shift. And then you're
If
like,
you did it right.
"Ooh," if you did it right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. And then they start to see that shift, and it's like, well, guess what? On a listing, you do all this work on the front end, and
You're
then
done.
you're good.
Yeah.
You're marketing things, you're sending out ads, you're doing those things to market your property, but all that can be done from home.
That's true.
You
And
know?
then it's all about branding from that point. And
Yeah.
if you've done a good job of promoting your brand and making sure that your value proposition coincides with your brand and you're getting it to the target audience that you're seeking versus just, hey, everybody, I'm a realtor.
Right.
That's not going to work moving forward because everybody else is a realtor.
Yeah.
You've got to look for your target audience and like-minded individuals and people that you can relate to.
Right.
Don't think as a millennial you're going to be able to relate to grandma and grandpa selling their house.
Right.
And I'm not talking your grandma and grandpa. I'm talking about their grandma and grandpa. Okay. So it's just, I was curious to see, because you get a front row seat to
Yeah.
the new or next generation of realtors coming on board. And I've worked with a couple of them, and some I'm thoroughly surprised and happy about. And
Yeah.
some of them you go, damn it, I've got to do their job again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's having that transparent conversation with them of like, I'm not doing this anymore.
Right.
You know what you need to be doing.
Yeah.
Go out and do it. And you're failing because of your own choices. You're not being consistent. You're not showing up. Like, this is on you and nobody else. Like, take ownership of it. And guess what? You can still change it.
That's so true.
You can still take charge and change it. And I think, like, typically in a classroom of students, you can tell who's already committed to whatever this career shift is. Like, during COVID, I was recruiting agents, and I was seeing nurses and teachers that were in those fields for 20 plus years.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, I'm tapped out. I can't do it. I'm exhausted, and they're like, I'm ready for a change. I've always wanted to sell houses.
Yeah.
Okay, let's make that happen. But this is what it's going to take to make that happen.
Right.
And I can go back to the office now, and I can see some of the agents that I brought on, and they're out because they gave up.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have the savings. Because by the time they got to me for me to interview, I've already passed the exam.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't anybody coaching them on that front end to say, this is what it takes.
Right.
It's, hey, I've paid all this money. Now I have my license. Now what?
Right. Basically going through the filter of whether this is right for you or not.
Right.
Having someone there to say or show that this is not as easy or simple as it was for the last, I'm going to say 10 years, to be honest.
Yeah.
Anybody jumping into real estate could find a deal. Any way you look at it, you could find a deal, you can make it work. And I think the toughest part about our industry is a teacher on her salary, his salary, has to work the entire year to make their $50,000, $60,000, right? Every single day, lesson plans, the whole 9 yards, build relationship with the kids, worry about all the different things that come into that. And good Lord, these days, who knows what they're dealing with. So, and then other side of the token, you sell 4 houses in a year, you made the same amount of money.
Right.
It's like a false sense of reality, security, success, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
Like, are you really succeeding in real estate if you make the same kind of money that you did in your previous profession, but yet the potential in this industry is unlimited?
Yes.
Does that
that's just because they're not applying themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And some people you talk to when you're speaking with them, they're like, I just want to replace what I was making. And I want to, or it's vacation money, right? Like, you get these moms that come in and they want 66% of us are females in our industry. And it's like, this is what they want to do just to bring in income or pay for sports. My God, that's expensive now.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, well, if that's your goal, then let's break it down.
Mm-hmm.
How many transactions at your average sales price in this market is going to get you to that dollar figure?
Yeah.
Okay, don't forget you got to pay Uncle Sam. So go ahead and add in a couple more transactions on that to make up for that gap, But sometimes they don't have that person telling them that. And that's what I'm here to do.
I love it.
I'm here to help them.
I love it.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, and this may be a tough question to respond to, but someone that is just looking to replace their income in where they were, do you think that that's an agent that you want to have representing you as a buyer or a seller? Meaning, it sounds like, and there are a ton of agents, lenders alike that absolutely say that. I'm leaving my industry because I'm tired of the hours. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of that. First off, you're joining this industry and you're going to have to work like quadruple the hours, by the way. But the idea is, if you don't have transactions under your belt, you don't have experience in the business. So therefore, if you're doing 4, 5, 6 transactions a year, are you really getting the best experience to be able to then advocate for your customer as the expert or advocate that? Right.
I think that can go both ways.
Okay. We get real honest on this show.
Yeah. I say that because who are you surrounded with?
Mm-hmm.
Right. We all have to start off somewhere. Right. So if you're only doing 4 transactions your first year because that's your initial goal is to replace that income, you know what I mean? At the end of that year, okay, then how much do you want to make next year? That goal is going to move.
And I like that.
It should move.
Right. And I like the fact that you said your initial goal.
Yeah.
Initial goal, totally cool with that.
Right.
But if you're 3, 4 years in and you're still talking about, I just do this to replace my income or to have extra money or so that we can travel because my husband makes X amount or my wife makes X amount.
They don't have that. And so in our industry, period, your experience is where you get your knowledge, is actually going out and doing it. So you can take all these classes and pass all this stuff and learn all the acronyms. Okay, that's great. But until you're out here doing it and actually going through the process, you're not going to understand. But like I said, it's all about who you surround yourself with. And I have top producers in my office that I have conversations with and say, hey, this is where I'm at. This is where I'm going. What is it that you've done to get where you are?
Yeah.
They will collaborate with you. They do not look at you as competition. They will
100%.
collaborate with you. And so if there's a gap in my process or my system or something I'm doing wrong, how can I improve that to get that? Or I'm picking up the phone and saying, hey, you know what? I haven't been through this. What have you seen? Have you gone through this situation? And to being in your office, being with a brokerage that you're there and you have office meetings and you have trainings because you're hearing what other people are going through. So
Right.
maybe you haven't experienced it yet, but if you're surrounded with the right group of people, you're hearing their stories and you can take that back and say, okay, like we had a new one this week. I was talking with one of our tenured agents and she has an ugly divorce situation that's going on and there's solar panels that are attached. The husband bought them without the wife's knowledge, signed off on them, had them put on the house. Well, now they're going through a divorce and the wife's like, that's his debt. It's not coming out of my net proceeds.
Wow.
Take it off the lien. So title got cleared to say, okay, it's now a personal lien. Well, guess who doesn't have the money to pay for it?
The guy.
The guy
yeah.
doesn't have the money to pay for it now out of his portion of the proceeds.
Because he financed him.
Right.
He thought he was going to save some money.
Right. No, and now he's
Wow.
$40,000 that he has to pay these off, and then he still doesn't get to keep them. Goes with the house.
Yeah, it goes with the house.
And so those are something I haven't been through. So to hear
Yeah.
her share that story with me and it's like, hey man, can you let me know how that works out? So that
Right.
way, God forbid I have to go through that.
I was going to say, hopefully you never
Yeah.
have to go through
Hopefully
that.
I never do, but guess what? I know that process. So if
Yeah.
I'm having a conversation for a listing, I can talk to them about that. I can walk them through that, right? So surrounding yourself with other people too, I think will help with that. Again, it just goes back to that person's individual goals and how much they really want it.
I agree. I mean, I'm going to spotlight the fact that you mentioned seeking advice or listening to absorb from top producers.
Mhm.
And I think throughout my years of being a top producer and I guess gravitating towards other top producers, we all have that in common. We were not scared to ask questions. We were not scared to stumble and get advice from someone else who had done it.
Right.
Why? Because chances are that person is dying to share that information with someone.
Yes.
Truly.
Yes.
And being open and honest with that person allows you to then kind of get in their shoes as much as you possibly can to not have to go through it. And what I tell my loan officers, I say this just about every episode, is a mentor or a leader should be able to not shield you,
Mhm.
but kind of, hey, watch out for that landmine over there. I've
Mhm.
already stepped in that one and
Mhm.
I blew off my foot. So
Yeah.
let's avoid this. Now, if you
Right.
still do it, okay, you learn the hard way and hopefully you learn. But
Right.
at the end of the day, we're trying to help you avoid things that we've already been through.
Right.
So,
And it goes back to agents just across the industry as a whole. I feel like maybe especially since COVID, I feel like we had this surge of COVID agents that came
Yeah.
in, right?
Mhm.
And they're like making quick money, but now they're listing sitting for 60 days because they have it overpriced.
so true.
And sometimes that's the case because just sellers,
Our sellers.
yeah, even though you set the expectation and you've given the data,
Right.
sellers are sellers.
Because
But
there's always somebody out there that's willing to list it for whatever you think it's going to be worth because they don't want to lose it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And in the end, they're really not doing their job properly.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
no, I agree.
Those are your COVID agents.
Yeah, I can agree with that. And so we've seen them, but they don't. They're not reading. They're not listening. And so it's like, well, what does the contract say?
Mm-hmm.
It's all right here,
That's
black
true.
and white. Just go back and read your contract. Go back and do this. And and I think just the newer agents that are coming in, that would be the biggest piece of advice. I didn't know your contract.
Yeah.
Know your contract. Know what you're coming into. And if you don't have it memorized, guess it's there. Just go back and read it.
I think the one thing that drives me insane, and this is loan officers and realtors,
Mhm.
is the first couple of contracts that a new realtor or lender get or use or write
Mhm.
or any of that stuff, they still don't know where a lot of things are. And
Mhm.
I totally get the idea behind you're really not going to know unless you actually go through it. But there's a whole lot you can learn by actually reviewing it before it actually happens.
Taking
The
initiative.
contract doesn't change.
Yeah.
So therefore, those blanks that you have to fill in,
Right.
those are going to be different answers, but they're not going to change places. They're
Right.
not going to change meaning. Hey, where do you put the third-party financing? Hey, where do you
Yeah.
put your financed amount? Where do you put the title company and who's supposed to pay for that?
Yeah.
Guys, just read the contract.
They just want you to give them the answer.
Right.
And I saw some of that being back in sales, and it's like, who's your broker? Most people will coach, and you teach everybody. Again, everybody starts off somewhere. So
Mhm.
I'm not that typical agent, but if I'm talking with you and you're arrogant and cocky and just think that you know better and you're a new agent and you're asking for my help, I'm probably not going to help you.
Right.
Like, humble yourself a little bit and I will gladly help you. I'm not going to do it for you,
Right.
but I will help show you. And when I was on the management side of things, newer agents, I mean, during COVID, there were times where I was doing Zoom calls at 9 o'clock at night, walking through their first contract
Mhm.
with them. So it goes back to, what brokerage are you going with?
Right.
Who's there to help you after hours
Absolutely.
to make sure you're doing this correctly, but also not taking advantage of that person's time.
And I think that you're right in that aspect. And I think the thing that we should all adopt as mentors and leaders is, I have no problem with showing you one time.
Yes.
After that, it's on you.
Yes.
Why? Because I don't have time to show you again. It's
Right.
in the same place that it was before.
Yeah.
So if you learn that, or if you learn something from me, is I'm not going to tell you over and over.
Right.
Why? Because back when I was in your shoes, I didn't have me telling me these answers. I had to go and find it the hard way the first time.
Right. I had to go research it. I had to spend
Correct.
that time. And that's something, again, just going back to parenting.
Yeah.
That's what I teach my kids. I showed you one time. This is what I expect. If I come back and it's not that way, you're going to do it again.
Don't stick your finger in
Yeah.
the light socket.
Just do it right the first time.
Or
and
do
we don't,
whatever.
Yeah, it's fine. Your choice, buddy.
You'll see.
Your choice.
I
You're
love
going to
it.
learn the hard way.
Yeah.
And so it's just who I am.
I love
You
that.
I'm going to show you. I don't mind helping you, but I'm not going to repeat myself. I
Yeah.
hate repeating myself.
Likewise.
And I don't have patience.
Why? Because it's a waste of time.
Yes. And I want my time.
Amen.
I want my time to go travel. Like, we've been traveling a lot more and just doing things. And I'm like, man,
That's
feels
awesome.
good.
That's awesome.
Feels good.
So as we conclude this thing, I want to ask, or give me a kind of a picture of what you're teaching now with these classes. What is your agenda? How do you put that together? What is the concept?
Yeah. So my material is provided
Okay.
for me. So obviously I have to know the way that they want it taught,
Right.
that specific material. I'm currently teaching qualifying education. I'm teaching finance.
Love it.
And then starting this fall, I will be auditing to teach residential mortgage loan officers. So I will be teaching
Yeah.
that class.
Okay.
So I'm really excited about that. And then they're actually implementing a new course sometime in the spring that I may be teaching. It's actually RMLO for real estate agents.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that's really
And
good.
do you think that is because there are a great deal of realtors that are becoming lenders, or do you think it's that they just want their realtors to be more educated on the financing side? And the reason why I say that, and I'm hesitant to kind of explain this, but I'm gonna do it anyway.
I wouldn't expect anything less.
Realtors need to know enough to be dangerous, but not enough to get them in trouble.
Correct.
Is
Correct.
that a good way
So
to put
I
it?
think it's more about the education aspect of it and making sure that they're knowledgeable in that. Because once you take that example, qualifying education
Yeah.
finance, once you take that class and you get out there, you forget about those things.
It's true.
Who goes back to their book that they had in class?
You're right.
I still have it.
Yeah.
Do I look at it?
No, you got a better shot of jumping on YouTube.
Yeah. So it's like I don't go back to it. So I think it's just a refresher course to keep them up to speed with changes, right? Our
Mhm.
industry is ever evolving.
It's true.
Things change almost on a daily basis. And then, then that's where you pair up with your relationships with lenders
Yeah.
and you get their knowledge that they have because guess what? They're staying up to date in that market.
Right. We have to. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And so you know enough to have a buyer consultation with someone and walk them through the different products and say, okay, go talk. Here's my list of lenders. Find one that you connect with. Go have a conversation with them. They will find the product that works for your financial needs.
Right.
I don't know anything else about your finances. I don't
Correct.
know how much you make. I want to know what your purchase power is and how much we can go put an offer in on.
Yeah.
Right. And if that product works for you. And that's because I trust the lenders that I work with, that I know they're not going to guide them or misdirection.
Right.
And so it's easy to get a loan officer license, right? But just like real estate, it's easy to get a real estate license. But how much experience do you have? What is your knowledge behind that in order to help these people get to where they're going?
That's awesome. I mean, well put. Truly,
Thanks.
well
Yeah.
put. So we've spoke about a lot in this episode. I mean,
I
this
know,
is
it's been fun.
we went all over the place. How are we? Wow. Okay. Did you think almost an hour had passed?
No,
I
I
didn't
didn't.
either.
I didn't. I did not at all.
So, as we conclude this, I want to ask if there's anything, let's say, top 1, top 3 things that you would give in way of advice for a new realtor to the business. And it can be realtor, it can be loan officer, it can be more so realtor, because at the end of the day, I think those are the ones that are seeking the guidance at the moment, especially the ones getting into an industry that, let's say they started their journey 8 months ago and they jumped in, and then all of a sudden rates hit the fan and it's like, well, what do I do now?
I didn't expect that shit.
Right.
Yeah. Stick with it.
Okay.
Stick with it, but you got to put in the work, right? Nothing's free. Nothing's handed to you. You've got to put in the grind in order to get the outcome. And so obviously that's with a healthy balance as far as what your perfect week, like I talked about earlier. So stay with it. Make sure that you're time blocking and you're sticking with it. Get rid of the distractions. Our cell phones are such huge distractions. So if you have something time blocked on your calendar, set it aside. I know that's really hard as a working mom to do that, because you're like, what if the school calls? What if this happens? Or what if I don't respond to this client at this time? Guys, our business is not life or death.
Right.
And it's okay for you to take care of yourself, take care of your family, and take care of others at the same time. So again, stick with it. Time block your schedule. Figure out what your perfect week is. And then I would say third is make sure you're reinvesting in what you're selling.
I love it. I love that. Yeah.
Put that in your budget. Put that in your plan. Whatever that goal is. Like your first year is, hey, I just want to replace my income. Okay, cool. Year 2, this is when I want to replace my income and have this amount saved up so I can put down on investment property. All right, cool. Next year, let's get our second investment. What are we doing to build that wealth?
Right. No, I think that's great. That's great information for the folks listening. I want to thank you so much for stepping out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Guys, after hearing this, I'm going to let you know this is her first podcast. What? You'd never tell.
No, it's awesome. I'm glad to be a part of it.
You kicked tail on this.
Thank you.
And I really appreciate you coming in here and sharing that stuff with us.
Yeah, of course.
So everybody listening out there, a couple of key factors that we take from this. Number 1, Ashley's a badass. And secondly, I think one of the biggest pieces is permission to say no. Protect your time. Believe in your value. Be honest. Set expectations. And when you set those expectations, stick to those expectations. If you can do that, I think that you're going to find yourself in a career path that is fruitful for years to come. I didn't say it was going to be easy. Okay. So that being said, guys, make sure to like, subscribe, share this with a friend, because you never know who needs to hear this and when. I'm your host signing off. We'll catch you on the next one.
You were talking about money, right?
Separate yourself widely from the pack moving forward. Is that something that you would be willing to have a discussion about?
Because they didn't get it.
They
were
probably
like,
didn't get it. Yeah.
To follow up with your clients, to generate more leads. You know what I mean?
Always check to make sure you're recording.
The record.
Yeah.
Clap, and I need to start over and all that jazz.
Oh, Lord.
Yep. We're going 5, 4.